Body shot, ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When the adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. Today, we're talking about the Santa Fe hero herself, Holly Holm. My guy, AJ, my co-host, he told me once upon a time that Holly Holm has more or less been adopted as a New Mexico native. Now, is she? I don't think so. But given her rapport at Jackson Wink's MMA, I think you got to just give it to her. And she's got a huge matchup coming off a 19th month layoff, the longest layoff in her career, against a young, hungry contender in Ketlen Vieira. It should be a fun one. But to talk about it a little bit more, let me bring in my co-host, the New Mexico native himself, the Santa Fe bomber. AJ, brother, I mean, 19 months is a long time for anybody to come back, but if there's somebody that can do it, I think it's Holly Holm. I think that she can do it and do justice to the sport by doing it as well. What do you think of it, brother?
Oh man, you want to talk about someone who's willing to climb mountains, brother. It's the preacher's daughter. And I firmly still stand by the statement you're saying, Derick. She may not have been born in New Mexico, but she is 100% a hometown hero. There's people that look up to her, see her out in public, man. She is a figure, man. And it's good to see that with Holly Holm out there. And yeah, like I said, somebody who's willing to come back through adversity, climb the highest peaks, knock out some of the best people that nobody in the world ever thought she could. Holly Holm, brother. It's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, brother. And speaking of adversity, I mean, she just came off of one of the biggest wins, the most definitive wins of her career against Irene Aldana. That basically set her up for a title shot in the bantamweight division. But then injuries happen. Then kidney issues arise. Things got weird, and let luck have it, let fate have it, however you want to say, let the universe have it. I mean, I guess the universe didn't want Holly Holm to be fighting for that title, but she's still in the mix. At a prime 40 years old, she's still in the mix, which is crazy. But we have a lot of other fighters to talk about as well. Brother, we have a banger in the, and I'm going to talk about it in my sleeper, but a light heavyweight jumping up to heavyweight. Jailton Almeida versus Parker Porter. You don't see it too often that somebody says, you know what, man, I'm so confident in my capacities and my capabilities as a mixed martial artist, I'm going to jump up with the big boys. Let's go up to heavyweight, brother. I mean, you got to give props to him, but you also got to give props to Parker Porter, who says, I'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. I wanted to ask you, is Parker Porter quickly becoming kind of like a gritty, like a fan favorite, you know what I mean? The big body, moves like a middleweight, you know, got the big pop in his shots. Like, do you feel me on that, or do you think he's still got some work to go?
No, man, I feel you 100% right there. Not only is he that guy that's kind of exciting, fast on his feet, but a big dude, but he represents too, man. He's down, like you said, he's down to fight whoever, whenever, and it makes the casual fans really excited. Nonetheless, he's a chubby dude who's getting in there willing to swing it, man. So he represents a lot of different characters and a lot of different values and ideas he holds. So he's one of the ones that comes up real fast in people's mind as a staple, even though he's at least pretty new in the scene, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, he is more or less one of the newer heavyweights in the modern day UFC. But speaking of people jumping our weight divisions and all that, the last thing I want to talk about before we really get into things is Eryk Anders. AJ, he's been kind of going back and forth between light heavyweight against Darren Stewart and middleweight. Where are we going? He's a big boy. He's a huge middleweight, just in and of itself right there. Still pretty big at light heavyweight, but he's moving back down to middleweight, I guess, building on his last middleweight win against Jun Yong Park, the Iron Turtle, brother. And you know how much of a fan I am of the Iron Turtle. This is one of the most underrated dark horse fighters in the middleweight division, in my opinion. However, Eryk Anders over there fighting at Fight Ready MMA in Arizona, brother. I mean, that's the super camp, the new super camp. That gives him a little bit of an edge. Do you think we're going to see a revitalized, reborn, ya boy, Eryk Anders this weekend? What do you think?
I think so, especially jumping down. We'll get into it a little bit deeper, but especially jumping down back to 185, training at Fight Ready. He's going to have a whole new set of tools to be pulling out, man. I'm excited to watch it.
Absolutely. Me too, brother. So, like I said, folks, we got a lot to talk about. Before we do any of that good stuff, I do need to remind you, drop a like, subscribe, get us up to 380 subscribers, almost to 400. So get us working. We appreciate you. We're doing this day in and day out, and this is actually the last week that we're going to be covering the sport, because we have, not the last week in totality, but next week we have it off. There's no Bellator, no UFC. I think we might have some one championship or whatnot, but we're going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus, and we're going to come back fresh with the next fight. I think we have a pay-per-view, or we got UFC Vegas 56. We got something coming up. Either way, folks, you know what time it is, and let's give a little bit of a recap. AJ, last week we did a wash on the over and unders and on the money line, but you beat me on the props. We're going to see if it's going to be the same outcome this week or if somebody's going to take an edge. But either way, let's do a little TLDR for UFC Vegas 55, this week's card. So it looks like we're looking pretty much like we were last week. We got 4 locks and we got 1 differing pick, and it happens to be the biggest one of the night. I'm rocking with the preacher's daughter, Holly Holm, in her matchup against Ketlen Vieira, but you're rolling with the underdog, Ketlen Vieira. You're rolling with the youth. I'm rolling with the experience. But let's talk about the 4 locks, AJ. Michel, Chidi Njokuani, Tabatha, Ricci, Baby Shark, and Eryk Anders. Those are what we consider on the Bloody Water podcast for UFC Vegas 55 to be our 4 locks, moneyline locks. I don't care how you do it. You want to do a decision, knockout, whatever. We'll talk about that in a second, but just pure moneyline, these are our 4 locks. Now, AJ, give the people a quick TLDR on why you're rolling with Vieira as opposed to Holly Holm in the main event.
Well, I know I just ruffled some feathers with this quick TLDR for the homies back home, man. So this is a rough one for me, man. Holly Holm, absolute hero in my mind. I just think Ketlen Vieira is an absolute banger and one of the hardest opponents that Holmes is gonna have to fight, man. Jeez. She's a brawler. She's heavy on the front leg, walks you down, big power in her hands. But if you knock her down, she's dangerous on her back. Yeah. Ketlen Vieira poses a lot of different problems coming for Holly Holm. But to that point, Holly Holm can still drop anybody, anytime, at any point, So there's reasons to be there, and it hurt a little choosing against, like I said, the hometown hero Holly Holm, man. But yeah, sometimes you gotta go with your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, we are having a contest here. This is a contest, and we're trying to win. So sometimes you have to take a little blow to the ego in order to be able to get up on the leaderboard. Now, I'm going to rock with Holly Holm, the preacher's daughter, because aside from some of the issues that she's had injury-wise, kidney-wise recently, listen, man, she's only been taken down by 3 fighters in her career: Valentina Shevchenko, Miesha Tate, and Raquel Pennington. And 4 of her 5 UFC losses have come in title fights. So when she fights pretty much the best. We'll talk about it more in 1 second. All right, folks, that is your TLDR. And if you would like to know why we're rolling with who we are rolling with and what method of victory we're going to be choosing, stick around. We'll let you know. With that being said, AJ, why not just jump into some sleepers, brother? Let's get it.
It's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
Now, AJ, brother, you actually have a pretty good sleeper yourself for UFC Vegas 55. And I don't like to mention it too much. I'm just kidding. I do like to mention it. But I saw both of these fighters at UFC 266 many moons ago, brother. They both fought on different matchups, but they were both on the same card at UFC 266. Both of them are coming off of a loss. And both of them are coming off of a submission loss. So Omar Morales, he lost to Jonathan Pierce, second round submission, rear naked choke. Uros Medic, he lost to Jailton Turner, first round submission, rear naked choke. Coincidence? I think not. Now they're matched up together, brother. These are 2 bangers. I think it's the Venezuelan fighter for Omar Morales, or maybe he's Colombian. I don't want to even mess that up, but he's a banger of a fighter, a great fighter. Uros Medic, 100% finish rate, man. He either lives and dies by the TKO or the submission. It is what it is. Talk to the people, though. Why is this a sleeper in your eyes, brother?
Man, Derick, that you said it best here, and you're right. Omar Morales, he is Venezuelan. Uros Medic, this dude's an absolute finisher. But I picked this one because both of these dudes got humbled real bad in their last outing, and there's nothing more invigorating for your next fight than getting put on your last fight. So that's one of the ones where both of these dudes need to get this one back, especially fighting in a very talented division. They're both fighting at 145, 155. What is it, 145?
155, brother. 155.
155. There we go. 155. Very talent-packed division. They need to make a name, man. And with all the people, all the chaos that's going on at the head of the division, these dudes in the middle of the pack really need to start making some moves and kind of making their way up. And the one way to kind of hinder that is get choked out, rear naked choke, round 1, like both of these dudes did in their last fight. It might have been round 2 for one of these guys. But either way, getting choked out in your last fight, not a good look, man. So come back next fight, you need to put on, you need to have a show, and you need to make a big statement. And that's why I like this fight right here, man. Big statement for either of these fighters, however they get it done. And what's called Omar Morales, this dude, he has like 6-7 submissions on his record. So in order to get choked out like that, and that one hurt. And the same thing for Uros Medic. He likes to finish it a little bit more by KO, but still 100% finish rate. Live and dying by the shield. It's always a great thing to see, especially in a sleeper. And I think because of all those things, this fight is going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's somewhere in the middle of the prelims. You're going to have to pay attention to the lineup. But either way, you got to tune into this fight, man. It's going to be a great time. Derick, what do you think?
No, I absolutely agree with you, brother. And the one thing that I will note is that you can't have much more of a stark difference in methodology in terms of victories between these two fighters. For Omar Morales in his last 5, his 3 victories have come via decision. And for Uros Medic, we already said he's a finisher, man. But these aren't just finishes. These are like all first round finishes. Like the man literally goes in there and he tries to take heads off, or he gets his head taken off. And there's actually a cool saying, AJ, and I might butcher this one, but they say, it was one of these fighters talking about it recently, and they're saying, I'm either going to die on my shield, or I'm going to come back with my shield. Those are my 2 options. And I was like, you know what? That's some gladiator shit right there. You got to love it. Should be a banger, folks. Actually, not should be a banger. Will be a banger. That's why it's a sleeper. You know what time it is. Now, folks, for my sleeper, I got one that's going to be a little bit different. Now, this could turn out to be an absolute banger, or this could turn out to be a very one-sided beating, but it's going to be a sleeper nonetheless because of the context behind the situation. So I said in the intro, Jailton Almeida, this is a light heavyweight stud, a star in the making, a dude who in his last fight against Danilo Marquez, who is a very talented grappler, he got blast doubled and his face smashed in the duration of the 2 minutes that the fight lasted. Jailton Almeida is all of 6'3", 79-inch reach, fighting at 205. Now, he was supposed to fight Maxime Grishin, who is one of the toughest tests that you can have in the light heavyweight division. However, Grishin pulled out. For whatever reason, it does not matter. Almeida says, I still want to fight. That's the whole reason I'm here. That's the reason why I'm in the UFC. Heavyweight bout, I don't care. Put me up against the big boys. Now, AJ, brother, real quick before I move on with talking about the sleeper, it's not every day that a dude says, I'm going to go rock with the big boys, that all it takes is one shot and you're literally, your life could be changed forever, right? So to be able to say, I'll fight Parker Porter, or I'll fight Francis Ngannou. Like, I don't give a damn. Like, there's a lot of fighters who would not do that and say, if you don't give me a fight in my preferred weight class where I can be a weight bully to a degree and I can have the size advantage, I'm not going to fight. But instead, give me the biggest, baddest dudes, because I don't give a damn. It's going to be the same difference. How much stock do you put in a fighter for their courageousness or their bravery to do something like that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, because to me, that's a double-edged sword. Yeah. One, that's how you build fans. That's how you build fame. That's how you get people to really respect you in the sport. 2, that's a fast way to an early KO as well, man. Sitting in there with the big boys. So do I put a lot of stock into the win? Maybe not so much, but do I put a lot of stock into the fighter? Even if they lose and go back down to the normal one, that's when I really put the stock into them. As far as grit, determination, and mindset, weighs a lot more for me on that one. But for the win in that one fight, it's a little iffy.
Absolutely. So like AJ said, it's a risky choice of business right there, but it's what gets you the fans. It's what gets you the notoriety, right? It's what gets you known in the fight game to give you these bigger, better opportunities. So the scary part about this is that Jailton Almeida, he averages 7.68 takedowns per fight in his UFC career thus far, right? I mean, that is a very skewed stat. The man has 1 fight in the UFC, and I think it was maybe Dana White Contender Series or something like that, where he really notched up all of those takedowns. The point here is that Jailton Almeida, big bombs in his hands, shoots for the blast double. Let's say Parker Porter sprawls on him and he starts hitting him with the ground and pound. That's where it gets interesting. That's where this turns into a sleeper, not a one-sided affair. Parker Porter, this is all of 263 pounds of a man right there. He has to cut to get down to the heavyweight limit versus, like I said, a 205er in Almeida. This is going to be a very, very fun fight. Should be your featured prelim, folks, but it's actually going to be one fight before your featured prelim, so tune in. I see a finish incoming. If this goes to a decision, I don't know what I will do. I will jump off a building. It does not matter. This is going to go to a finish. This is going to be a banger, folks. So those are rightfully your 2 sleepers at UFC Vegas 55, and the 2 fights that on the prelims you need to be watching. Like this, without a doubt, do not blink. You know what time it is. And AJ, real fast, I'm just going to move back into the intro real quick because I forgot to do something that we always got to do, brother. And that is a poster review, my man. So I wanted to knock it out real quick, brother. So let me just get my pen and pad real fast. And while I'm doing that, brother, would you like to describe to the people what you are seeing right now?
Of course, brother. Yeah, no, this one, I actually kind of like this one a lot. It's a little old school vibey, you know, a little black and white with the yellow behind it. Maybe that's yellow. I'm gonna stop saying colors because, you know, I mess them up all the time. But no, you got the face-to-face, Holly Holm looking mean. Same thing, Ketlen Vieira looking mean, staring at each other. I like the backlight kind of. At first, I thought they were shining up Holly Holm just a little bit more, and then I saw Ketlen Vieira has her own little light behind her as well. The offset in the name, like somebody sliced right through with a samurai sword. I like this one, you know, a little more than the previous, at least. I'm going to 7. What about you?
Oh, man. So listen, folks, I don't know if you've been keeping track throughout the year. 7 is pretty high honor right there for my man AJ. You know what, folks? So what we have here, Holly Holm, Ketlen Vieira stared off, right? You got the yellow border. You got the, to me, I'm like, these are two godly figures or something like this. This is like something out of Dragon Ball Z or something where it's just like the light's projecting on them. The divinity right there that you see behind Holly Holm and Ketlen Vieira. I think it's a little too hyped up for the matchup. This is like title bout matchup right here that you have on it. But either way, it is fun. It is different, and that's what we give style points for these days. So even though it's a little monotone, a little boring, but it's still exciting at the same time, I'll rock with the 6, brother. I'm not going to be as charitable as you are today. But either way, 6 and 7 for me. That is your poster review. It is our obligation, folks, and without any further ado, let's jump into the main card, brother. Let's get it.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick, G, and AJ.
And brother, let's talk about the actual fight that people are here to talk about for or to watch for. Either way, whatever you want to put it. Holly Holm, the preacher's daughter. You said in the intro, brother, that she's having arguably one of her toughest matchups against the young, the hungry Ketlen Vieira, ranked number 5 in the women's bantamweight division. But either way, Holly Holm does open up as a minus 210 favorite with a plus 175 comeback for Ketlen Vieira. Now, the interesting thing to me is that Holly Holm is 40 years old and Ketlen Vieira is 30 years old. There's literally a 10-year age difference, but the odds makers don't necessarily seem to have that impact the way they view the outcome of this fight or their predicted outcome of this fight. So I wanted to ask you, man, Ketlen Vieira, oftentimes her advantage in the fight game in most of her matchups come because she is a sizable. She's just bigger. I guess that's the best way to put it, man. She has a big size advantage on a lot of these fighters. She's kind of like broader shoulders, you know, she's in there, and when she grabs you, when she hits you, man, the power is very noticeable. She has real deal pop in her shots. Now, my question to you, AJ, is she going to have that same impact against a Holly Holm, who is all of 5'8"? Both of them are 5'8". Both of them have about 68, 69 inch reach. Holly Holm, man, she's fought in boxing. She's fought all in the 140 pounders. She's fought 145 pounds in the UFC, and this is a 135 pound fight. So she's big for the division herself. Does Ketlen Vieira's size advantage come into play in this fight?
I don't think so, Derick. I think it's a little bit more nullified in this one, especially because Holly Holmes used to seeing all that stuff. Well, I said in the intro, one of the hardest opponents she's faced in quite a long time. But look at her hit list, man. She has some serious killers out there and being fed, but nothing to the wolves, and holding her own, holding up very, very well, man. So I think Holly Holm, one of the advantages that Ketlen Vieira walks into, she's walking in and going to be the bully, going to be the bigger lady in there, going to walk you down, going to hold you down and beat you up. Now, Holly Holm, she's the same size, and she's dealt with that kind of vigor and persona from her opponents before, so she knows how to deal with it. So that's right there what kind of throws in the big Vieira wrench of her plan, or the wrench in Vieira's plan, excuse me. Because of that fact that she's not going to be able to be the bully, I don't see it working out that well for Vieira, at least in that aspect. I think we're going to see a lot of technical matchups right here, and that's what Holly Holm is best at. If she's going to win this one, I see a technical decision all day long. She just staying out 5 rounds, piecing her up, not allowing Ketlen Vieira to be the bully. Do you see it the same way, or do you see something else coming?
Well, yeah, I think Holly Holm has to play the game if she wants to get the victory, especially as she gets a little bit older and older and her opponents are younger and hungrier. I mean, at a certain point, you just have to use what you have in the fight game right now, and that is her boxing base that she built her career off of. Use her footwork and her movement to win the fight. I think of Holly Holm. When I think of Holly Holm, I think the female Wonder Boy. I think the female Stephen Thompson. You know what I'm saying? I see somebody who uses their point, that karate style, in and out karate style of Holly Holm, the movement. So she has the boxing, the karate style, the crazy kicks, the side kicks, the oblique kicks. Like, she has all of the distance management tools that she needs, but she has one caveat in her fight, in her tool belt, I guess I should say, that has been a real game changer as of late, and that is her ability to to initiate takedowns. That's her ability to surprise her opponent by saying, I'm going to take you down. You take me down, I'm going to get the wizard, I'm going to get back up. Like I said, she's only been taken down by 3 fighters: Miesha Tate, Valentina Shevchenko, and Raquel Pennington. I mean, that is a pretty solid list of fighters if we're talking about people who are legit in getting people to the ground. Now, the question that I have right here is pedigree, is strength of schedule here, AJ. So Ketlen Vieira is coming off of a big win against Miesha Tate, which a lot of people thought that maybe it was a little closer than it appeared. I picked for Vieira in that fight, and I thought that Vieira actually got the win personally. However, you look at her fight before that, she lost to Yana Kunitskaya, went against Ajara Eubanks. She got knocked out by Irene Aldana in a fight that I thought she was winning until she got knocked out, and she won a split decision against Kat Zingano. Now, that is all great, and that definitely lists Ketlen Vieira as a bona fide women bantamweight contender, bona fide, top 5, right? Bona fide. But Holly Holm, brother, I mean, this is just different, man. She's like legendary status. She got a definitive domination 50-45, 50-44 win against Irene Aldana, completely dominated her, one of the best boxers in the division. Won her second fight against Raquel Pennington, so she's 2-0 against Raquel Pennington. She did get knocked out against Amanda Nunes in a fight where I thought she just kind of got caught slipping. She was trying to check the leg kick and then got kicked in her face. It happens, right? Got a win against Megan Anderson, and then her last loss in her last 5 was against Cyborg. There we go. Against Cyborg Justino. Christine Justino? Something like that. Either way. Chris. There we go. Chris Cyborg. Apologies, folks. So, but like I said, 4 of her 5 losses have come against, UFC champions, brother, in title fights. So this is just much difference. Here's the thing. Obviously, strength of schedule, Holly Holm, right? But power, Ketlen Vieira, right? Speed, maybe Ketlen Vieira, honestly. Maybe. I'm not sure there. Durability, AJ, that's the question. Who's more durable in this matchup?
Man, that's another one I had right there too, because in my mind, Ketlen Vieira, she's down to bite down on that mouthpiece. Yeah. She's down to have the war. You have her coach screaming at her in Brazilian, so you got the drive to be that crazy fighter. I'm kind of going with Ketlen Vieira, especially she has been knocked out. She has been knocked out, so that can happen. But it feels like Holly Holm would much rather play the game, the tag and tag back game, instead of I'm gonna bite down, I'm gonna sit here with my foot in this tire and we're gonna swing to the death. Whereas I feel like it's a little bit more Ketlen Vieira. Do you agree or do you disagree?
No, I absolutely agree with you, and that leads to my next question. Since this fight has taken place at the UFC Apex, tiny cage, brother. I mean, I don't think that's been a problem for Holly Holm in the past, but is that another reason why you're picking Ketlen Vieira in this fight, knowing that she's going to be able to just try to cut off the ring, stalk Holly Holm? But then again, like I said, Holly Holm's literally her best attribute is her footwork and her movement. So do you think that Vieira has a big advantage in that regard, or what do you think?
I think that's going to be the one where it's a little more iffy for me because Holly Holm does have amazing footwork, and she has this tendency to not be in the poor places, the bad places. She has a tendency to be in the right spots at the right time to avoid the knockout. Now, that being said, in the smaller cage, it's a little bit harder. Things are going, and they're bigger girls in there, man. They're 5'8", they're not the the 115 5'2" in there, where they can run around like crazy. So. Yeah, it's a little bit. That was a little toss-up for me. I don't know how that one's gonna go because I can see Holly Holm bouncing around, maintaining distance, staying to the outside, piecing her up technically, and getting a decision that way. I can see that happening. I just think it's more likely that we're going to see fisticuffs being thrown in the first and second and see how it ends up that way.
Well, it's interesting because it's like that method of victory for Holly Holm is basically what she does in every single one of her other fights. So it's like the odds of that happening are probably pretty high. So. Listen, man, we have a real deal veteran, Holly Holm, right, who I think that she has the edge. One of the big reasons is because of her boxing pedigree, man, because of the footwork that is ingrained in her mind through all the years of that foot in the tire, bounce around, karate style, let's move, you know what I mean? So it's going to be an interesting matchup. The question becomes, can Ketlen Vieira get Holly Holm on her back and keep her there? Because if she does, that changes the entire aspect of this fight. But once again, folks, I don't know how many times I need to reiterate it. Look at all the fighters that she's fought. She's only been taken down by 3 fighters. Once again, Miesha Tate, Valentina Shevchenko, and Raquel Pennington. 2 of those 3 fighters are former champions. or current champions, Valentina Shevchenko. You know what I'm saying? So I will just leave that for where it is at. This should be a fun matchup, but let's talk wagers, brother. Obviously, Holly Holm, moneyline favorite. We already know that, right? But let's talk about the actual ins and outs of the props. You said Holly Holm via decision probably is going to be the most likely method of victory if she were to get it done. Well, I'd have to say she's very Caitlin Chikagian-esque because she is a minus 135 prop for a decision victory. She's minus money. Holly Holm. So that goes to show. I mean, dude, she has 6 decision wins. Like, you know, she gets down. So that probably makes the most sense. Now, can a TKO happen? Anything can happen in the cage. And if a TKO does happen, plus 450. So that's actually not too bad, brother. However, Ketlen Vieira for a TKO, and I don't know why this is such a high number, plus 1,100, brother. Plus 1,100 for a TKO on Ketlen Vieira. And for a decision, plus 335. So what's the most likely outcome for a Ketlen Vieira victory? TKO or decision?
Man, I was thinking TKO, but by those numbers, I was actually going sub. What's the prop on a sub?
Plus 700 for Ketlen Vieira.
Okay, see, that to me makes more sense. Although the plus 400 for the decision, that's interesting. I wonder if it's because in her last fight, her coach didn't want her to take the fight to the ground and kind of wanted that point, battle up top. Man, those numbers kind of throw me for a loop, man, because I think the KO or the submission's a lot more likely for Ketlen Vieira because Holly Holm can win the point fight all day long. So that makes it's interesting, man. I'm still gonna stick to what I think is gonna happen. I'm going Ketlen Vieira with a submission with that plus 700 you're talking about. I think it's gonna happen early too. Round 2, maybe round 3. We'll see about that, but. Yeah, what do you think? Those are some interesting numbers, man. Plus 1,100. What'd you say? That's crazy.
Yeah, well, given your reaction, I just went and I double checked to make sure that I didn't just type in an error. And no, brother, Ketlen Vieira by KO, TKO, or DQ plus 1,100, brother. So I mean, that's what the odds makers have it as, man. And I think it's because look at Holly Holm and all the people that she's fought. The only person to ever knock her out in her entire MMA career, Amanda Nunes. I mean, Cyborg couldn't knock her out. You know what I mean? Jermaine Durandamy couldn't knock her out. Like, come on, brother. Came close, but definitely couldn't knock her out. So with that being said, brother, I mean, are you taking the submission prop or what are you taking?
Yeah, I'm still taking the submission prop.
Okay.
Ketlen Vieira submission. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. So what round do you have it in, brother? Over and under on this fight,
I'm going to
brother.
go 3. I'm going to go round 3.
Okay. Over and under is 4.5 rounds. So you're taking the under, yeah?
Yeah, still taking the under. I was thinking about that. 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. I think it's going to happen in the middle of the fight. Yeah. Either way, it's still taking the under if it's 4.5.
All right. And that's what I think for Ketlen Vieira. If she's going to win this fight, I think it has to happen early. Holly Holm can dance around you for 5 rounds, no problem. Can Ketlen Vieira last those 5 rounds, though? It's going to be a great question. I mean, the Miesha Tate fight was indicative of maybe what can come, but we'll see what happens. But that is your main event, folks. I am rocking with Holly Holm. AJ's rocking with Ketlen Vieira. I'm going points for Holly Holm at that minus 135 prop. So a little bit better odds than the minus 210 for Holly Holm, but plus 700 on the submission prop for Ketlen Vieira on AJ's side. We will see what happens. And that is the lone different pick between us both. Everything else should be a lock for us. So let's move on with the next one, brother. So we have Santiago Ponzinibbio, number 14th ranked in the welterweight division against Michel Pereira, number 19th ranked, which is interesting because it's like, what does the man have to do to get a ranking next to his name? Is the welterweight that stacked, or is Michel Pereira just not fighting the correct level of opposition? I mean, he got a win in his last fight against Andre Fialho in his UFC debut, which has aged incredibly well, given how Andre Fialho is just knocking everybody out in the UFC. Got a win against Nico Price, win against Chaos Williams, a win against Imadev, brother. Like, what do you have to do? The last fight that he lost was a fight that he won, and it was against Diego Sanchez when he kneed him in the head illegally when he shouldn't have. Either way, if that didn't happen, he'd be on a 5-fight win streak right now. But Ponzinibbio is a dude who we saw out of action for a long time due to injuries, and I think he had some infections going on and all that good stuff. But since he's come back, he's 1-1 in his return, right? So he got knocked out by Li Jingliang, first-round knockout, took some time off, got a big win, comeback win against Miguel Baeza, and then a loss against Jeff Neal. AJ, brother, the question that I have for you is that Ponzinibbio, he's a little, just a tiny bit, he feels undersized in the division. Just feels a little short, a little, you know what I mean? But his tenacity kind of makes up for it. Michel Pereira, however, is a behemoth of the division. He's a monster in that division. Do you think that Santiago Ponzinibbio is going to be able to fight through the fire that is a Michel Pereira, given the size difference and the size stature?
I think so, especially given the pedigree that Santiago Ponzinibbio has and the style and the mentality he has. This dude will walk you down, man. He's always dangerous. He just needs in this fight to be a little bit more consistent than Pereira, which is isn't too hard. Pereira's kind of all over the place. So if Santiago Ponzinibbio can be that consistently walking down, get on the inside head movement, do whatever he, on the inside, whether he wants to take him down or just beat him up a little bit and then bounce right back out and avoid the flashy striking. Ponzinibbio can get it done, man. It is possible. He's very, very gritty and a very powerful fighter in there. And if you're feeling off a little bit of a way and you're willing to be on the back foot, Ponzinibbio will take that lead position. So I could see these things working out well for him. It's just you got to avoid that crazy man, Pereira, and he's getting better and he's becoming less crazy in certain moments. He's an interesting one. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you right there, man. I think Ponzinibbio is going to have to be very careful on this one, very technically sound and consistent, right? You just stick to the game plan. But for Michel Pereira, he draws out the craziness in all of his fighters. I feel like he makes them very impatient, the way that he dances around, just pops the jab out, big right hand. For Michel Pereira, though, I wanted to ask you this, man. He's not finally. He's a favorite in this fight, minus 115 with a minus 105 comeback for Ponzinibbio. So he's a tiny favorite, but he's still a favorite. It feels like now it's like he's undeniable. For a long time, many of his fights, back to back to back, we're like, I don't know. He's too flashy. He does all this nonsense. Like, I don't know if he's going to get the win. Starting off with the Chaos Williams fight, proved everybody wrong. Then Nico Price, proved everybody wrong again. And then Andre Fialho, proved everybody wrong again. Now it's like, do you have to bet on Michel Pereira just because the man just isn't losing? I mean, and these are point victories, brother. These are decision victories. Not like he's just knocking you out and just being like, we don't know. We know over the course of 3 rounds, he can get it done against just about anybody. But then again, Ponzinibbio, we already said this dude, his resume is a little bit different, man. His place in the welterweight division is a little bit different. This is the fight, AJ. If Michel Pereira wins, he is officially a bona fide top 15 fighter. Now, my question to you is, does he have to do it in definitive fashion? Does he need a finish to really solidify himself in this top 15? Or if he gets another decision win where he's dancing around you, does a backflip on you, kicks you in the head illegally on the low, but nobody says anything, you know what I mean? Is that going to be the same impact in terms of that? Or does he really need a finish to solidify here?
No, I think a consistent beat down. I don't mean to use this word again, but if Michel Pereira just has a performance where he's pointing you up, man, he's beating you up, he's staying flashy, staying slick, hurts you, and then goes for the flashy stuff. I still think he solidifies his win because what else does this guy need to do? He's on a 4-fight winning streak. Technically, should be a 5-fight winning streak. But he's almost undeniable at this point. It really is just comes down to opposition. So
the interesting thing here is that you're not going to find too many people who have more experience than a Santiago Ponzinibbio, who has a career 34 fights, man. 29-5 is his record. Michel Pereira, brother, he is 28 years young. So he is 7 years younger than Santiago Ponzinibbio. However, he has all of 38 fights, brother. Like, he is way more experienced. And he's only 28, so he's not even in his prime yet. That's what's so scary about this dude. So it feels like upward trajectory for Michel Pereira, but for Ponzinibbio, it feels like he kind of already reached the pinnacle. And now he's not necessarily on a downslope, but he's just kind of on a plateau right now. So the pressure really has to be on Ponzinibbio, right?
Oh, 100%, man. 100%. Yeah. Ponzinibbio must be feeling the pressure, especially because for a long time, Pereira was that mystical dark figure that nobody wanted to figure out. Now with 5 fights and all the tape in the world on him, everybody's not that scared. But at one point, he was the one guy that you didn't really want. He was the the wolf. What's the
Chimaev.
Just fought, man. Chimaev. Yeah. He was the Chimaev before Chimaev, if you will. He didn't have as much heat and as much press to him, but still he was that kind of fighter.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that he's kind of come back in Dana White's good graces, because when he did all that dance and stuff, and I think he lost that fight actually when he came out, and Dana White was pretty pissed. But now, like I said, he's feeling basically undeniable. So let's talk about it. Michel Pereira, obviously, minus 115 for the money line, and I'm looking at the current odds right now. It is swelled in favor of Pereira, minus 125 for Pereira, plus 105 for Ponzinibbio. So the odds makers are really feeling Pereira here. But let's dive a little bit deeper, brother. Let's talk props. If Michel Pereira wins, decision is a good bet, obviously, right, for 3 rounds, because Ponzinibbio is a tough customer right there, man. He's only been knocked out 3 times. Those are the only times he's been finished. 3 times in his career, all knockouts. And the last one came against Li Jingliang, which was just a first round. Boom, done, right? But let's get a little more into it. For Santiago Ponzinibbio to win via decision, we're looking at plus 215, submission plus 1800, and TKO at plus 450. Now for Michel Paeta, it looks like we have plus 185 for a decision and plus 300 for a TKO. Which one sounds more lucrative to you?
Probably that plus 185 for a decision. I think it's a little more likely to happen because Ponzinibbio, he's very durable. He's rugged. He's hard to knock out. Sure, Li Jingliang did it 2 fights ago, but very rugged fighter nonetheless. Especially coming back, man. Yeah, after that Jeff Neal loss, he looked good. He did look good even though he lost the fight. So I think that decision plus, what'd you say, 125?
Plus 185 for Michel Paeta.
Plus 185, I think a little more likely. I'm kind of still blown away. These guys, these props on both of these fights are like plus 1,800 for some of these ones. Yeah. Some of the odds makers have very little confidence in finishing in some of these, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, that plus 1,800 is for submission for Ponzinibbio and for submission for Paeta plus 1,000. And if you look at it, both of these dudes combined have 15 submission victories. So it is kind of crazy. But then that goes to show these dudes aren't easily finished. I think that's why. Because when it comes down to it, combined, they have been finished 5 times combined between both of these fighters. So 2 tough customers, man, and the winner, either way, winner or loser, you're still both going to be in the top 15 at the end of the day. You have to be, man. Michel Paeta just can't be denied any longer, I think. So are you rolling? You're rolling with Michel Paeta, yeah?
I'm rolling Michel Paeta, and I'm taking that decision. That plus 185, I like that.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll be taking the decision as well. As much as I would like to say a TKO for Michel Paeta, I just think Ponzinibbio is too good, too skilled, too durable, and he's going to bring the fight. And I think that's what's going to lead to a Paeta win, is he's going to be walking forward. And Michel Paeta, as much as he's a walk-forward guy himself, he's also a counter-striker. He's just an aggressive counter-striker. Over and under AJ on backflips for Michel Paeta. How many backflips are we seeing?
I'm going over 3.
Oh, shit. All right, let's get it. We'll see. Michel Paeta is going to have to initiate some takedowns, see what happens. But, all right, that is your pick for the co-main event. Michel Paeta via decision over here. All right, brother. Now, Chidi Njokuani versus Dusko Todorovic, who, AJ, he has been more or less of a running joke that we've had on this podcast talking about Dusko, chin high, sky high, all that good stuff. And while that has been true, he's also come back to his winning ways, right? In his last fight against Maki Pitolo, who is no longer with the UFC, he put on a pretty good showing, man. First round TKO via punches. However, it was not your traditional Dusko victory. It was not your let's stand, let's box. It was let me take you down, let me flatten you out, and finish you with the ground and pound. Now, doing that to Chidi Njokuani might be his best method of getting a victory because you do not necessarily want to sit and kickbox with one of the best kickboxers in the division. So not only one of the best kickboxers, but this dude's Muay Thai is phenomenal. His UFC debut was explosive, to say the least, right? So who did he get the win against? Powerbar, Marc-Andre Barriault, where he just hit him with the 1-2 and put him out. It followed up a couple punches on the ground, but that was basically it. So first round KO. Now, AJ, I wanted to ask you, in regards to Dusko Todorovic, who has more UFC experience than Chidi Njokuani, however, less overall MMA experience, do you think that Dusko is going to try to switch it up a little bit and see a little bit more of that wrestling intensive pressure that he put on a Maki Pitolo in the first fight? Do you think we're going to see that against Njokuani?
I'm not sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought for some reason I'm remembering Dusko getting taken down and then flipping the position on Maki, not necessarily initiating the takedown. And if he did, correct me, he might have. I can't remember at the exact moment, but I don't really see Dusko being the guy initiating the takedowns, being the guy that sees the openings and then shoots that blast double. I see him more of the striking, fighting it out, and then if he gets to the ground, then we'll work from there and then we'll figure it out. Do you remember off the top if he did or if he was taken down?
Off the top of my head, I don't actually remember with enough conviction to ensure that I'm accurate, but I will say I do remember Dusko. I think he took a shot and it failed, and then later on it just kind of got to a point where he got it on the ground, and yeah, so maybe it was a reversal. Either way, I think that some of the mixing it up is going to be what's important. I think mixing it up is going to be very important because even in his last fight, man, this is exactly what DC says. Dusko, he's looking good, but that chin is just too high, man. It's like, when are you going to learn, right? So he has only been finished once in his career, to be fair, like, right, to truly be fair in regards. He's 11-2. It's not like this dude's just getting knocked out all over the place. It's just what we see time and time again is he's there to be hit. And for Chidi Njokuani, who, let's be honest, brother, in his last fight, he didn't do a lot with his, he did. He did a lot with his hands, with the 2 shots that he landed. But he comes out very kick heavy. That's how he opens up the fight, right? Everything. It's a teep kick. It's a leg kick. It's a thigh kick. It's a calf kick. It's a teep kick. It's just working the kicks, using the distance management, and then unloading with the hands. But in his Dana White Contender Series fight, where he got a 3rd round TKO victory, man, I thought that one was really interesting because he was able to initiate some of the groundwork. He loves getting into that clinch, using the big knees to the clinch. That's how initially he hurt De Souza in that fight, is some knees to the body, got him hurt, got on top, and finished him. And it was what it was. So Dusko Todorovic falling into that clinch might not be the best option for him. However, he does kind of have that style where he'll just sit and clash, right, instead of being evasive and just moving all over the ring. Now, if Dusko Todorovic was to win this fight, AJ, if he's going to sit there and come up with a plan to defeat Chidi Njokuani, can it be done on the feet, is my question for you.
I think so. I mean, Dusko has some serious talent in the striking division. He's just little chin high. You know, that's the only biggest problem, and he doesn't. I think why he hasn't learned that yet, as like everybody pointed out, Biz being DC, we've been making jokes for quite a while now. Is because he's only been finished once. You know, he hasn't had to suffer that loss of like, damn, are these dudes tapping my chin because my chin's so high? You know, he hasn't had to actually get that one down yet. But you can see that he's learning. He's getting better each time. He's putting a little shoulder in front of it. So I do think that Dusko, the defense is kind of getting better, catching up to the offense. But the offense is so good that's where he was shining. So he didn't really need to learn those lessons. So yes, I think he can get it done on the feet. It's going to be a very long road to toll on that one because Chidi Njokuani is very, very talented on the feet. So if Dusko can mix it up, I'm with you. He'll see a little bit better going forward if he's able to mix this up. At least get Chidi thinking about a takedown, thinking that I don't want to go to the ground with this guy. But Chidi's good too, man. He's good, especially in that clinch. Those knees are heavy.
So how does Dusko close the distance here? Because normally he has a nice jab, nice right cross, right? But Chidi Njokuani has an 80-inch reach, 6-inch reach advantage for Chidi Njokuani, and he's 6'3", so 2-inch height advantage, and he uses his kicks primarily to cover distance. So, you know, your legs are normally longer than your arms. I mean, tough sledding here for Dusko Todorovic coming into trying to just sit here and outbox Chidi. That's what I'm saying. You're going to have to mix it up because I just think it's going to be a long night or an early night, depending on how you look at it, if you just sit there and just try to trade with Chidi. What do you think?
Mate, that's a very hard one to see because you're right. And Chidi has a very nice jab as well, stiff jab. Good kicks up the middle, high kicks. But what I think that when I see this one happening, I think the only thing I can see Dusko doing that's kind of unconventional that would be able to get you kind of in the mix, fake a takedown, come up with one of those flexible kicks. Because if you look at this dude, he can kick you in the head when you guys are standing in a phone booth. Yeah. He has that same kind of Justin Gaethje-esque kick where you're so close that Justin can kick you in the legs. Well, Dusko can kick you in the head. Yeah. So if he can fake that takedown and throw a kick up to the head and then kind of work for that chaos, that scramble, then I can see it happen on the inside. But it's a very random and very hard thing to land if you're trying to fake a takedown and land a head kick.
Yeah, brother, I'm with you. So as much as I'm a fan of Dusko Todorovic, who is 2-2 in the UFC, I just think that this is going to be a really, really tough matchup for him, and I think we're going to see one of these. So I'm going to let the cat out the bag on here. I'm rocking with the Las Vegas native, not really native, you know what I'm saying, but the hometown hero himself right there, training out of One Kicks gym, right? Respect to Chidi. I think we're seeing a second round TKO on his behalf over Dusko Todorovic because I see one of these happening. Dusko, he's maybe Chidi's throwing a big right hand or a leg kick or something, and Dusko does a lot of this. Instead of guarding and like shielding himself, he'll just try to evade, and as soon as that chin touches the sky, boop, game over. So I'm rocking with Chidi Njokuani via TKO, and the prop for Chidi Njokuani for TKO is plus 145, which goes to show what the odds makers think. They definitely can see a finish happening. And his decision prop is plus 300. So that goes to show that's where that is. Now for Dusko, plus 500 for a TKO, plus 700 for submission, and plus 400 for a decision. So all of those are kind of long shots on behalf of Thunder, Dusko Todorovic. But like I said, I'm rocking with Chidi, second round TKO, and the over and under on this one, brother, is 1.5 rounds. So I am rocking with, I'll take the under. I'll go early second round. So who are you rocking with, brother?
Yeah, I'm with you, man. 100%. Chidi Njokuani. I went TKO, KO, round 2 as well. I'll take the over. I'll go late round 2 just to mix it up a little bit. But yeah, it's funny that you said those are long shots when we got plus 1800s on the props on the earlier ones, man. My big question to you before we wrap this one up: who did Dusko piss off? Because they are sending this dude to the wolves on all of his fights, man. Punahele, Gregory Rodriguez, even Daquan Townsend, man, and then Maki Pitolo too. Somebody, he pissed in somebody's Cheerios.
Yeah, you absolutely did something like that. Or, brother, this is the other big or if, or whatever you want to call it for me. I think that Dusko Todorovic, his style of fighting is so exciting in that stand-up and trade with these fighters that they're like, we just have to put you in the exciting fights. And unfortunately, that means you're rolling with dudes who want to knock your absolute block off. But this is, I mean, make it or break it right here, man. For Dusko, he needs a win here. A loss wouldn't break it for him, but he definitely needs a win. So both of us rocking with Chidi Njokuani, Chidi Bang, TKO round 2. Let's get it. All right, now AJ, this is a fight right here that I am very interested in. I've been keeping a lot of tabs on because there are two fighters right now in the strawweight division who I think are basically the future, and they're kind of prototypes of each other. They're kind of carbon copies a little bit. That would be Baby Shark, Tabatha Ricci, and that'll be Lupi Godinez, right? These are two very, very, and Lupi, she's a strawweight, right? She's not a flyweight. I'm pretty sure she's strawweight.
I think so.
Let's look it up. Real quick.
I think he fought at 125 last.
Let's look it up just for clarity because, like I said, I'm a big fan of these fighters. So, Ariana Carnelosi, Luke Boonmi. Let's see. Tapology, brother. Let me just pull it up. Apologies for the lull, folks. And nope, strawweight, brother. Yep, okay. Both strawweights. Okay, so yeah, Lupi Godinez and Tabatha Ricci. I think they're basically the future of the division. Why? Because they are, even though they're stout, they walk forward, they're aggressive, and they can wrestle the hell out of anybody. Now, for Polyana Viana, who, brother, let's be honest, man, she had a rough patch. 3-fight losing streak at one point. It might have even been 4, but I think it's 3. JJ Aldrich lost a decision win. Split decision lost to Hannah Cipher, so that was a rough one. And then Macedo, first round submission armbar. But then she comes back, beats Emily Whitmire with an armbar, and then beats Mallory Martin with a armbar as well out of the triangle, right? So it's been live and die by the jiu-jitsu for Polyana Viana. However, Tabatha Ricci, who has a great grappling pedigree herself, is a wrestler, brother. Have you seen those ears? Have you seen the cauliflower on those ears, brother? She's ready to get it, man, and that's what she does. The problem that I have, though, is that Polyana Viana, even though she is basically a grappler, her striking is nothing to be messed with, man. I mean, she does have some pretty decent striking, and she's the much bigger and longer fighter. 4-inch height advantage, 5'5" to 5'1" for Polyana Viana, and 6-inch reach advantage, 67 inches to 61 inches. The big caveat here is that even though Ricci is the wrestler and she has the advantage in the sense that she might be able to freeze Viana a little bit in her striking to be able to get the takedown, Viana doesn't mind fighting off of her back. So how much do you think that's going to play a factor in this fight? Is Ricci so confident in her wrestling that she doesn't care and she'll just take her down anyways? Or do you think she'll make it a little hesitant on just shooting doubles? You know, you don't want to just shoot a double and get guillotine fight over. You know what I mean? So what do you think?
Yeah, that's I see it the exact same way as you, man. Polyana, great on the ground, taller, so she's gonna have that distance, you know, that range management a little bit better. Tabatha Ricci is, in my opinion, man, I agree with you. We've been covering her since her, you know, for a long time, since her inception of the UFC. She could be the next mini Mike Tyson, bro. She has that power, she has the movement, she has the pressure. All these things are good for her. And this fight right here is a culmination of styles make fights. Yeah, they're both good on the feet. Yeah, they're both really good on the ground, but Tabatha Ricci really likes that top position, is a wild, crazy person on the top. She's looking for either she's looking to pound your face in or tap you out, you know, put you to sleep, snap one of your bones, whatever the case may be. That's her goal, to be that danger, that wild kind of woman. And Polyana Viana, man, she's, like I said, good on the strikes. But once she gets to her back, she likes that back position, and she likes to capitalize on the mistakes you make in that crazy flurry. So this is a perfect matchup. I can see why this is both minus 110 for these fighters, because styles 100% make fights, and whoever is the better person on that night will win that fight. This is one of those ones where I have 10 times out of 10, these fighters fight, it's 50-50. We're going to see some interesting stuff unfold. It's a coin toss, basically. And I don't really know, to answer your question. I don't know how this one's going to unfold exactly, because both fighters are good at what they're good at everything, but they shine at what the other one's not as polished at, if that makes sense. You feel me?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it a little bit differently, though, to be honest. So I actually think if this fight happened 10 times, I think Ricci would win like 7 out of 10 times, personally. I think the wrestling, in my opinion, just from my experience and from what I've seen, sometimes the wrestling pedigree can dominate a jiu-jitsu fighter all day long, man. Just because you can fight off your back doesn't mean you're going to win in the eyes of the judges, right? Unless you get that submission. If Ricci just avoids getting submitted and lays on top of you for a round, I mean, she wins. Control time, I guess, means everything these days, right? But the other aspect about it is that for Tabatha Ricci, I also see issues for her closing the distance, because against Maria Oliveira, who, fun little story, remember, AJ, I was telling you that I was fighting in a Fuji tournament in jiu-jitsu, me and my girl were, and little do we know, my girl white belt, just in the kind of beginner brackets in no-gi, for the women's division, because there's not as many fighters, sometimes you get matched up with these higher belts, and you get matched up with, it's like their own little bracket, their own little extra tournament within the tournament itself. Well, next thing I know, I'm looking, Jessica Andrade, she's over here, she's destroying people, she's coaching, doing all that. I'm like, oh, that's fun. Jessica Andrade is there. My girl goes up to fight, and who is she fighting? Maria Oliveira. And she, got submitted a couple times, and it happens, right? But that goes to show that Maria Oliveira is always practicing the grappling chops, man. She's a big girl, man. She's a big fighter. And when she fought when she fought Tabatha Ricci in her last fight, even though Oliveira was longer, lankier, and all that good stuff, Tabatha Ricci, she was able to bypass the reach to get to the takedown, to get the fight where she wanted it to be. Even though she was much longer, and Maria Oliveira is not someone who's just easy to take down, brother. Her jiu-jitsu chops are legit. So, given that Ricci was able to do that on Oliveira, this is the next step up against Viana. Can you do that to Viana, who is a little more willing and susceptible to go down to her back? I think so. Smash spot. Yes, AJ, you did mention minus 110 a pop. This was a pick'em at open, but the odds have swelled in favor of Tabatha Ricci, minus 120 with a plus 100 comeback for Polyana Viana, which I think is probably a little more accurate to where it should be. Now, the last thing that I have on this before we talk about, the props and all that good stuff, is that Tabatha Ricci's UFC debut was against Manon Fiorot, the beast, right? And that was a weight class above. That was at flyweight, I'm pretty positive. So the problem that happened there is that she got basically starched, man. Second round TKO. It was ugly. It was really, really bad. But I think it's because Ricci just led off with, I'm going to take you down. There was no setup, no all right, let's play the game, let's try to box a little bit and then go take down. It was like, I'm going to take you down. And then Fiorot was like, no, you're not. And just finished, right? Do you think she has to kind of play the game against Polyana Viana a little bit? Or can she go straight Smesh style, Chimaev style, I'm just going to take you down, there's nothing you can do about it?
I mean, I would rather her play the game a little bit, let Polyana think the striking's coming. But even in Tabatha Ricci's last fight, man, she opened up, touched the fist, and then hit an Eminari roll. So she was letting Oliveira know, I'm coming for those legs, I'm coming to take you down. Who's to say she's not going to do the same thing on this one? And what I like about Tabatha Ricci, and this is always one of my favorite things in karate and fighting, somebody throws a lazy little kick to you, you just catch it. And in my case, boop them on the snoot. But in Tabatha Ricci, she goes right for the takedown, man. She likes that, catch that kick, and then go for her own attack after that one, man. Which, good, bad thing. Catching a kick is always a very dangerous thing, because if you go to catch one, but it goes over your shoulder, you're taking a little nap. So I think Tabatha Ricci can still do that, can still work, play the game, play the hands, play the little movement that's going on. Once she sees that kick come, swoop it right under, get her to the ground, smash spot city all day long.
Well, I will say, if you remember her fight against Mallory Martin, that's how the fight got taken to the ground, is Mallory Martin caught the kick of Polyana Viana, and then Viana jumped guard. Next thing you know, she get triangled. So you got to be careful there. You got to be careful. And I did just want to bring up, I think it's always cool to bring it up for Polyana Viana. She was known kind of for that situation she had where I guess somebody, a dude, tried to rob her or something like that, and she just beat the brakes off of this dude. So Polyana Viana is nobody to be messed with, man. She is legit. legit as they come. And she's on a little bit of a streak herself. So this is make or break, because if Tabatha Ricci gets the win, if Baby Shark gets the win, momentum is through the roof. If Polyana Viana loses, that momentum kind of takes a little bit of a dip. So you're fighting for your job here, not because she's going to get cut, but you want to keep your spot in the place holdings. So AJ, let's talk props. Decision for Polyana Viana plus 290. Decision for Tabatha Ricci plus 185. So not too bad, either one. For submission, because even Ricci said in her pre-fight interview, she thinks that it's going to be more or less of a jiu-jitsu fight. For submission for Polyana Viana, plus 1,000. For submission for Tabatha Ricci, plus 700. So it seems like it's going to be a long shot for the submission on either end. And I thought it was interesting that Ricci has a better submission prop than Viana does, because I think that should be flipped. But for TKO, brother, this is the really crazy one. Polyana Viana plus 1,035 for a TKO, plus 790 for a Ricci TKO. So clearly the odds makers are saying if this fight is going to be won, it is 90% of the time probably going to be won via decision. And with that being said, I think we kind of know who wins that fight. So I got Ricci by decision. I think that her wrestling is going to be too much. I think she's going to just win the control time, do the damage, defend a couple submission attempts from Polyana Viana, but keep her on her back for the majority of the fight if she's smart. If Viana keeps it on the feet, different story, but that's how I see the fight playing out. Decision, Ricci. How you have it, AJ?
Yeah, same with you. Decision, Ricci. I like that point, that plus money comeback for her. And I just think both of these fighters are so good on the ground that we're going to see that kind of jiu-jitsu stalemate match that can happen, but also very dangerous fighters. So who knows? But I think the decision is more than likely.
Absolutely. So we are rocking with the now favorite, but at open was a pick'em, Tabatha Ricci. Should be a fun one, and the over and under is plus 1.5. So clearly we are taking the over on that one. Now, last fight on the main card, but this is a small-ish main card for a fight night. Normally 6 fights, but this was only 5. Eryk, ya boy, Anders versus the Iron Turtle, Jun Yong Park. And Eryk Anders, even though I'm like such a big fan of both of these fighters, he opened it up saying, oh, we're going to be making some turtle soup when he's talking about Jun Yong Park. And I was like, you better not sleep on my boy, brother, because that is not the right mentality to have against a Jun Yong Park. This is a scary, scary man. And to even solidify that even more, he opened up as a minus 220 favorite, brother, and the odds are still the same. Currently, plus 180 for Anders, minus 220 for Jun Yong Park. Anders says that it is crazy that he is the underdog. He should be the favorite in this fight. And to a degree, I can see where he's coming from, but Jun Yong Park, given that he fought Gregory Rodriguez and had Rodriguez on skates in that fight, ended up losing, getting finished, right? He still had a very valiant effort, right? He has a majority decision win against Stefan Njokuani, where he bloodied that man up. It was pretty rough setting for him at one point. John Phillips and Marc-Andre Barriot. He has victories against all of those guys. Very impressive, man. Great striking, great takedowns. You know what I mean? His wrestling is legit. Jun Yong Park is nobody to be messed with. But your boy, Eryk Anders, man, what makes him scary in your eyes? Is it his ability to walk forward and land critical damage on his opponents and take a lot of damage himself, only been finished twice in his career? Is it that this dude was like a former fucking middle linebacker or some shit at Alabama, you know what I mean? And now he's an MMA fighter? Is it that he's just that powerful of a man? He fights out light heavyweight. He's a huge middleweight. What is it that makes him so scary?
My favorite aspect about him is he's a marauder, down to walk forward, bite down that mouthpiece and engage in a war, because he's a big dude, bro, coming down having to make weight. And that's going to be the big question I have for this one. How's the weight cut going to be? Because he's fought at 185 before, so, he's getting it done. But when you go up and you're kind of getting older and things are a lot harder, man, you don't get small unless you're Jose Aldo. You don't get smaller as you get older. It's just something that doesn't happen, especially being this big. These big boys are coming in. I think that's Eryk Anders. One, he's a great fighter as well, but his style and his tenacity and the way he's drawing people into the fight and Jun Yong Park is willing to engage in that kind of crazy style. I think that's what makes him a very dangerous fighter in this one here going. Do you see a crazy explosive match coming, or are we going to see something a little more technical, Derick? Which one are you thinking? And what's your favorite aspect of Eryk Anders as well?
Well, so I think that we're going to see a little bit of a repeat of the Gregory Rodriguez versus Jun Yong Park, where it was just back and forth trading shots. But the difference is Anders is big power and Jun Yong Park is steady volume, right? He's not the big power guy. He's the steady volume, and that's how he beats his opponents up, just nonstop, just volume. But Are you going to be able to handle the power of an Eryk Anders? I'm not sure. And one of my favorite aspects of an Eryk Anders is the durability, brother. You remember his fight against Thiago Santos, right? Where he was just getting destroyed, picked apart. It was not a good look, right? And he's able to just withstand and keep it going. It does not matter. Like for him, he says, I follow him on Instagram, and he answers questions from time to time. He said that's one of his favorite fights that he's ever had, right? You look at his fight against Khalil Roundtree, another one where it's just getting chopped down. It's just like, Jesus, man. Like, but he just wills through it. There is no quit in the man, unless you're getting your arm snapped off like he did against Andre Muniz in his last fight, which is like, let's be honest, it's a loss, but is it a bad loss when you're fighting a dude who has been killing everybody? You know, he's the real contender in the middleweight division right now. Somebody who I don't see getting talked about nearly enough, but that's neither here nor there. Either way. So obviously, this is going to be a matchup of power versus volume. But it gets interesting when Jun Yong Park decides he wants to take it to the ground. If he was able to take Tafon Njokuani to the ground, who is really a light heavyweight fighting at middleweight, and Njokuani might have moved up to light heavyweight, I'm not sure currently as it stands, it's going to be interesting because Eryk Anders had that issue with Andre Muniz. When he fought a Gerald Meerschaert, he was able to get a decision victory on Gerald Meerschaert without necessarily getting taken down all crazy and, you know, putting those bad spots. But the clinch of Eryk Anders, I think, can give Jun Yong Park a little bit of a problem, brother. I think that that's a spot where Eryk Anders can do a little bit of overpowering, drop those big knees, do a little bit of dirty boxing. But if Eryk Anders decides to clinch up with Jun Yong Park, do you think the threat of the takedown is going to be too high for him?
That's what I was thinking, man. That threat's going to be too high because he was exposed so bad by Andre Muniz in the last one. You know that Jun Yong Park's going to be thinking the same thing. And is Park that submission specialist that's going to be able to get things done? It's going to be told. I mean, I don't really see him as that. I see him as more of the consistent, you know, like you said, very puts the pace on you, stays consistent with it, not the big power shot kind of guy. But to that point, the Iron Turtle has 3 submissions, so it can be, again, it can happen that way. He just has more KOs and decisions, but the submission, it can happen. And against somebody who is that walking forward, is that pressure guy, is that scary marauder like we're talking about, it's easier to take him down when he's walking forward and he shows you his hips, and then you just shoot right to them. And like I said, he was exposed in his last fight, so it has to be weighing on him a little bit, and it has to be somewhat of a game plan for Jun Yong Park. What do you think? Is Iron Turtle going to be able to take him down?
Well, my question is, because I'm not going to answer your question with the question, but the question I have for myself when you ask that is that has his preparation at Fight Ready kind of gotten him prepared for that? You're training with Henry Cejudo, man, Triple C right there. So it's like, all right, you got a dude who knows all about the wrestling, all about the takedowns. Maybe he has a plan for Jun Yong Park, because we all know, if you're a Jun Yong Park fan, you know what the game plan is. It's to strike him up, get him to the ground and pound him. I think Jun Yong Park has the record for most significant strikes landed in a fight because of how much ground and pound he had against John Phillips. That was the fight that he solidified that one, right? So let's look at the prop too on that one. Jun Yong Park via decision is plus 100, brother. That is clearly the best path to victory. But if MMA was a cut and dry sport where it was just like, oh, well, he has this game plan and he's going to execute it and that's going to be that, I'd pick that all day. But you're fighting Eryk Anders, and do you think he's just going to let you do that? Like when John Jones and DC, they were arguing back and forth on the interviews, and John Jones was like, I'll kill you, and DC was all like, you think I'm just going to let you kill me? Like, you really? Like, you think I'm just going to let you? Like, and I was like, bro, that's how it is. Like, Eryk Anders ain't just going to let you do that shit. Like, come on, bro. So Jun Yong Park is going to have to get past the power, but it's not going to be an issue because he's fought nothing but power dudes in his last 4 fights. However, I think this is Eryk Anders' moment right here, brother. I think that he's an underdog and he's being overlooked, but I think he's really grown. With every fight, he's grown more and more and more. And that last loss, yeah, that was a major setback. He did get exposed, but Andre Muniz broke Jacare's arm, brother. I mean, do you know who Jacare is? This is not just some dude off the couch. This is one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in MMA history. So with all that aside, brother, I talked props. Let's get into it. Clearly, the Iron Turtle is the heavy favorite, minus 220. Eryk Anders, plus money, 180 comeback. But if we're talking about a decision for Yong Park, is that plus 100 too lucrative to not take, even though you're rocking with Anders? Like, because for Anders, for a decision is plus 350, and for a TKO is plus 450. So I feel like an Anders money line might be a little bit safer than any of these props. What do you think?
I think so, man. Saying that, because what in my mind, I had Anders KO round 2. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to go a lot like the Gregory Rodriguez fight. But as far as safety for the bet, that kind of money line sounds a little bit better, man. I mean, the odds makers have it as Jun Yong Park winning the decision. But if you are going to take Anders, that plus 180 for the money line, probably the safer of the bets.
Yeah, and I agree with that as well. Just because Jun Yong Park, the one thing that I did notice that does lend favor to the TKO prop for Anders is that when he's hitting that volume approach on you, he's just arms forward, do. He's not bringing nothing back. He's not guarding. That's how he got finished, is because he was just doing too much of that strike. Gets caught. Couple right hands over the top by Rodriguez, when Rodriguez was like dead tired too, right? Gets caught. Next thing you know, the fight's finished, right? So for Eryk Anders, man, you let him hit that big left hand. You know that's Eryk Anders' game plan. It's land the big left hand. There's nothing else that needs to be said right there. You know what I'm saying? So I think it is fair though, AJ, and I'll put this down because we're both rocking with your boy Eryk Anders in this one. Even though I do think that Jun Yong Park it's not going to be an easy fight. I'll just say that. I think the best case scenario is no prop on this one and resort to the money line. But if you were going to take any prop on this one, I don't care who you're rooting for, I would take the plus 100 decision win for Jun Yong Park just because I think that's the safest odds of happening. Either way, I'm going to defer to the money line on this one. And you feel the same way, AJ?
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, man. The money line seems to be the most lucrative, at least for the pick that I'm looking for, that Eryk Anders. But if you are going to go for the prop, that decision by Jun Yong Park, it's good money.
Absolutely, brother. So listen, man, over and under on this one, 2.5 rounds. Even though we're rocking with the money line, let's just talk about a method that we see happening. How do you see it happening? Over, under, TKO decision? How do you see it going down?
I mean, obviously going for the money line. I think, man, I still see that KO round 2. I think it could be a short one. Okay. Could possibly be a short one, man. What about you?
So are you taking the under though? 2.5 rounds?
Under.
Yeah.
The under, because you said 1.5?
2.5.
2.5. Yeah, taking the under. Okay. Early round 2.
Listen, brother, it's gonna be tough, man. I want to say Anders by a TKO. I really do, just because of the deficiency. I think the power is just going to be too much for Jun Yong Park personally. But then you look at when's the last KO win Anders has had, and it's been a little minute, man. It's been a lot of decisions. So I think that I'm going to rock with the over on this one. Go points for Eryk Anders in a hard-fought victory, but I think he's going to have the more explosive, more damaging shots throughout the duration of the fight. Jun Yong Park could have more significant strikes landed, but we'll see. It depends on who gets hurt, all that good stuff. So, folks, that is your main card for UFC Vegas 55. Now, this was some interesting back-and-forth fights. So you'll often see me and AJ will go back and forth with these fights when it's not as clear-cut and definitive. Sometimes we're like, oh, easy decision, easy TKO. Some of these were like, well, it could happen this way, but the flip of the coin could take it this way. And what happens if the breeze is like 7 miles an hour on this day, then it goes differently? You know, it's just, it's all with the win, brother, all with the win. So if you like the main card breakdown, if you like the props picks, if you like the wagering, if you like all the fun stuff, drop a like, subscribe, share the show with your friends. You know what time it is. Let the people know the greatest MMA show in the universe, right? If, like I said, if they had shows on Mars, it doesn't matter because we'd be better. Enough said. All right, AJ, let us move to a little bit of Prelim Pourover. How about, real quick. All right, so a couple fights that I wanted to talk about, man. And the first one is Chase Hooper versus Felipe Colares, right? And this is going to be a fun fight because Chase Hooper, right, even though clearly we've seen he came into the UFC probably a little too early. Way too early, probably. Not in terms of mentality, but in terms of just his physical body. Like, you need to go hit the gym, get some muscle mass on you, because that's how people are exploiting him right now. But then again, he still has some of the best jiu-jitsu in the roster. Now he's fighting another dude who is another grown dude, Felipe Colares, who has great jiu-jitsu himself, who is going to be a very dangerous threat here. But I think it's interesting because it's like Chase Hooper's getting fed to the dogs here, man. Chase Hooper is an underdog again, plus 140, minus 165 comeback for Colares. I don't even want to talk about outcomes of the fight, but I want to talk about, do you think that Chase Hooper's ability to last in the UFC is going to be there? You know what I mean? If you just keep losing, if you keep, losing these fights and it just turns out to be uglier and uglier. I mean, I don't know, man. He's super young, 6'1", 74-inch reach, but super skinny, man. I don't know. What do you make of it?
Yeah, super young. And it's weird because some people can grow up in the UFC, but I think those days are done. It's not a growing enterprise anymore. No. It's a solidified, professional sport where you just can't show up undersized, underdeveloped and grow up in the UFC like you used to. Because as much as I can see Chase Hooper being a star, I agree with you. I wish he would have just had 2-3 more years until he really came into the scene and people aren't able to bully him. Because that's what goes on right now, man. They put him on the back foot, they bully him, and they sun him, basically, and it's rough to see.
The striking, a little much to be desired too, but he's 2-2 in the UFC, so it's not like he's not able to get victories, man. Both of his victories, right? One via TKO, one via submission. So it's not like this dude is just like, oh, who is this guy? He doesn't belong. He absolutely belongs in the UFC, but it's just, can people use their physical advantages against him? And oftentimes that is the case. So for a Felipe Colares, who is a little shorter, a little stouter, right? Lost a split decision to Chris Gutierrez in his last fight. Has a win over Luke Cool Hand Sanders, who is no longer with the UFC. Lost to who is this? Montel Jackson, who, I mean, bro, Montel Jackson's a tough outing for anyone. Either way, the point is, I just think that the 28-year-old Felipe Colares is going to kind of bully the 22-year-old Chase Hooper. You hate to see it, but I hope that we see a sneaky submission by Hooper. I think that could be fun. Elise Reed versus Sam Hughes, brother. Sam Hughes got a much-needed first victory in the UFC in her last fight against, who did she fight, man? It was an interesting fight against Estela Nunez. It was a majority decision fight where it was a little contested. A lot of people thought Nunez could have won that fight, but either way, she came off of 3 straight losses before that. Tisha Torres, Loma Lukbunmi, and Pinheiro, right? So, I mean, tough sledding right there. Tough sledding. But for Elise Reed, man, that win over Corey McKenna, I mean, she used that right hand all day long. Right hand, right hand, right hand. But is she going to be able to deal with the wrestling chops of a Sam Hughes, who I think is going to try to take the fight to the ground and just kind of keep it there? Now, Corey McKenna, she kind of wanted to do the same thing. She wanted to grapple, but she got a little complacent, and her lack of grappling, I think, is what lost her the fight. Sam Hughes, now that she has realized, I know what my path to victory is, and it is get the fight to the ground and pound, be boring, I don't care, I need a win. I cannot afford to lose another fight. Do you think she can get past that long-rangey right hand of Elise Reed, or do you think that Reed is going to have a field day on the feet?
No, I think Sam Hughes can get past it, especially because now she knows that's the path, man. Once you suffer those 3 losses, it's kind of, the boogeyman in the corner that you never want to go back to, if you will. That's one of those ones where she has to get the fight to the ground. Gonna struggle, gonna be, because like you said, Elise Reed does have that range, but I think Sam Hughes gets it done. Absolutely.
I'm in agreement with you. I think Elise Reed will make it interesting, but I think Hughes definitely get the fight to the ground, Jonathan Martinez versus Vince Morales, man. This is going to be a fun fight because Jonathan Martinez, who has kind of come into his own, given that he said, all right, I think let's lay off some of the finishing tactics and let's just win the fight. And he's been able to just outpoint these dudes left and right? He's coming off a couple big wins. But he's fighting Vince Morales, who, you remember Davey Grant versus Louis Smolka. This happened just last week, right? And Louis Smolka did get finished, but come on, what did it take to finish the man? It was something incredible. Like, it took so much to finish him. And really, he only got finished because his leg gave out on him, and then he just got ground and pounded, game over, right? However, Vince Morales starched the man in one shot. One right hook is all it took to get him out of there. Now, Vince Morales, coming off that devastating KO win, is going to have to fight Jonathan Martinez. It's going to be a much different fight than that original fight against Smolka was. I think that Jonathan Martinez, man, I think that given the dudes that he's fighting, yeah, these are tough guys, but I think Jonathan Martinez is just a little bit of another level. When he's on, when he's game, and he's ready to go, Jonathan Martinez is different, brother. When he's not, it's a little bit, so-so. But what do you make of this matchup?
Man, I almost made this one my sleeper just because of that. Because Vince Morales has some serious power. Jonathan Martinez with the kicks, man. I like Jonathan Martinez coming up, especially for the fact that he has, grown into that like you're saying, that I'm going to abandon the flashy finishing stuff. I'm just going to win this fight. I like him for that, man. It's not as exciting, but it pays the bills.
And that's what counts right now. So lastly, folks, your featured prelim is Joseph Holmes versus Alen Amedovski. And I'm just going to say this. If you like 2 dudes who go to the center of the cage and they just swing and bang, this is the fight for you. That is clearly why it's your featured prelim. All the other fights, listen, you know what time it is. This is going to be a fun card, UFC Vegas 55. And do not forget, folks, we have a 1-week hiatus after this card. So enjoy it. Watch all the fights. Definitely get your prelim pour over. You know what time it is. Now, AJ, brother, I think it is fair that we hit the outro. Brother, 5 fights, man. This is going to be make or break it for us. But however, we have 4 locks and 1 differing pick. So while it maintains you were up a couple of fights on me, man, I don't think that I can get back into the lead on this one, but we can make it 1 fight closer if everything goes according. Either way, we're both over a 64% accuracy rating on the year. And once again, we're going to have you dialed in with the props. We're going to do 4 props this week, not 5, because we're rocking with the money line on the Anders Jun Yong Park fight. So 4 props, and we will get back to you with the results. But once again, AJ, brother, who else does this? Who else does their picks, does their props, and then follows up with them? Because everybody else, they just throws them out to the ether, says good luck, and then just moves past it like nothing ever happened. But accountability means something, correct?
100%, Derick. Accountability means everything, especially in this light, man. We're publicly audited by y'all good folks right there that are watching, man. And that's what I like about it. We're staying consistent, staying true, staying right here, man. Best MMA show in the entire universe. Like Derick said, if there were shows on Mars, we'd be better. Right. And we're right here with our picks are better. And you know, who else brings you prop lines, money lines, all the things? Even if you want to take, you know, a 4-fight parlay, we got 4 locks right there. It's pretty safe. Maybe not pretty safe bets, but for the most part, they're really locked in right there. It's going to be a fun one either way. Like Derick said, best MMA show, but it wouldn't be possible without you fine folks, and we love and appreciate all of you for it, all the support. It's much appreciated, like I said, and always go get your merch. Get some merch. Help us out a little bit.
Code BWP10 for 10% discount off of all merch at checkout, man. Hit up the website, bloodywaterpodcast.com, on Instagram at bloodywaterpodcast, and on Twitter at bloodywaterpod. But most importantly, just hit up the YouTube channel. You can type in Free Thinkers Club, you can type in Bloody Water Podcast. Either one will get you there. But once you get there, don't just hang out and watch and all that. Subscribe, share, drop a like. It's important. Drop a comment. Let us know how you're feeling. Let us know how much money that we made you guys, because all the time it's like we're giving out these props, and when we see them hit, we're like, I hope you guys took those, man. We're giving you free money. You know what time it is. All right, folks, I think that's it for us. We will catch you on Monday for the post show, but until then, peace.